Lapse the steering wheel here. Give me the steering wheel. Hey, steering wheel. Somebody tell him to give it to him. Come on! Whoa!
You like my bass? You like it?
How the f*** is this possible?
I'm driving like a grandma. Get that, Ralph? Did you hear me? From the radio, the race. Ralph, acknowledge. Now, come on, close him down and kill him. We've got a lunatic on the track down the Haas straight. I am so annoyed.
Hello and welcome back inside Depart From A for podcast number 908. This is Todd.
No, Todd, not now.
A.K.A. Negative Camera. You know why I've asked you here.
You must convince the villagers that I'm harmless.
That's exactly what I need you to do. Tonight, for your kind consideration, we're going to talk about some fun, or at least I thought it was interesting Formula One news. I do hope you will agree. But before doing that, I have to introduce my guest. You know what that means. I got to go all the way to the right coast of our nation, nestled in our nation's capital, where she is the owner of the world's largest cat tree. And Mikasa is looking at that awful closely if you're watching this on video. The lovely, the redoubtable Grace. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good, Todd. How are you doing?
You know, Grace, I can't lie. I can't lie to you. We're old friends. I'm in the process of job hunting. Did not have that on my bingo card. So I'm like, oh, really? So I'm kind of in the, or actually, I'm literally at this point, like,
Oh, Jesus.
unbelievable.
GP2 engine.
I know. Did not have that on my bingo card
Oh, that's
for
the
this fall.
worst.
I know.
And then you have to I have a friend that's also looking for a new job, and we always joke about the because they always ask you what are you doing? Where do you see yourself in the next 5 years? And of course, my initial response is always alive. I hope, right? Like I know that's not what they're asking, right?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
get the point of why they ask that question, but I'm like, that's always the first thing. I hope here, alive, employed, like big picture things. Like I don't know.
I know. And it's the, I'm not going to get into it. It's a sad and depressing story. But anyway,
Yeah.
having said all that, I
Yeah.
soldier forth. There is Formula One news to talk about
Wow.
tonight. We are going to, yes.
Here's your uplifter. Happy Canadian Thanksgiving, everybody.
There you
So,
go.
all our Canadian viewers, listeners. Happy
Yes.
Thanksgiving.
Yeah. Yes. Happy Canadian Thanksgiving.
There you go.
Yes. So, for all of you in Canada celebrating.
Or, you celebrate other people's holidays. I'm all in for that. Have some turkey extra,
Right.
I don't know if they do turkey.
I don't know.
Thanksgiving. I've been to Canada during Canadian Thanksgiving, but I've never actually partaken in the Thanksgiving. But,
Yeah. Yeah.
Sure, have some stuffing.
Yeah. Why not? Or whatever it is that they eat.
Yeah. I mean, if you're going to have two holidays, I think Thanksgiving is a good two holidays to have, Celebrate your Thanksgiving, their Thanksgiving. It's good.
Right. So a huge thank you and hello to our Patreon supporters, and including Dave. He says back bacon. Grace.
That may be what they eat. I don't,
Could be. That's what Dave thinks.
We used it to go visit wineries. So, so this is the trick, right? You fly to Buffalo and then you just drive across the border. And on your way to Toronto, you drive through Canadian wine country. So you just stop along some wineries along the way and then you're in Toronto.
There you go. That sounds like a plan.
Yeah.
And by the time you get to the border crossing near Buffalo, you've had a few.
Well, the wines, I guess coming back, but we only ever did it on the way up. But yeah.
Okay.
I've been to Gretzky's winery. He has a winery in that area.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
I never met the great one, but yeah, I had his wine. It's pretty good.
Oh, there you go.
It's fun.
Who knew he could play hockey and make wine?
Not just Truly,
No. That's right.
Athlete and winemaker.
Truly the vintner.
Yeah.
Yes. So let's talk about some Formula One news.
Sure. Great transition. We'll get right into that.
Here, we'll segue into this. It's a different category right now.
We don't even have a Canadian. Oh, we do. We could talk about Lancey. There you
We
go.
can
That's
talk
right.
about Lance. Yes.
Right. Transition
Yes.
right in there.
Talking about Lance. I wonder what Lance did on his off time.
We should ask him what he did for Canadian Thanksgiving. I hope they ask him that in Austin.
They should.
How was your Thanksgiving? What did you have?
Right.
We'll send that right out. We'll find out now who listens to this podcast by who asked them that question. Who's paying attention?
Right. Exactly. So in Formula One news this week, I got to poking around in some of the articles and headlines and such. And one of them is a sort of an article about Red Bull and sort of, I don't know if it was sort of state of the nation sort of thing, but it was, about the attrition they've had and those kind of things. And I was reading that article and I got to thinking about it. It was interesting in as much, and it was quoting Helmut Marko about losing some of the key personnel. So, I mean, just on the surface of it. Yeah, just a few. You've got Adrian Newey, Jonathan Wheatley, Will Courtney, Rob Marshall. They've all been poached by Red Bull. Certainly not a new concept here as far as having your key personnel poached when you're at the height of success and doing real well. Sure. Mercedes went through that, right. After 8 dominant seasons, as you would expect. And so they suffered some key personnel being poached and over to Red Bull and other places, right? So nothing new there. When you're at the height of a success, everybody reckons, that those people are really good at what they do, and this person's a great aerodynamist, or this person's awesome with engines or gearboxes or chassis or carbon fiber, whatever it might be. So they tend to poach them, but it's common in F1, and yet this left Jos Verstappen saying, effectively, I'm paraphrasing here for Jos, but basically, see, I told you so, with regards to the warnings that he had given about the issues created by Christian Horner and all the tumult in the team and how people would leave. But that's not exactly how Helmut Marko sees it.
But I don't think Jos Verstappen is a wizard. Like, that's the best kept secret since, Ralph Schumacher to Toyota there. That, Christian Horner was accused, and that is going to ruffle your organization, right? And I can't imagine he's an easy guy to work with. So, thanks, Jos. And we know you were paraphrasing because there was no cuss words in it. Right. So, It's for sure paraphrasing, but,
and no child abuse in my comment either.
Ooh. Yeah, way to go, Jos Verstappen. Nobody was left at a gas station or, had their helmet thrown at them for coming in second during the course of that quote. So that's how we know. But, yeah. Wait, I feel like you should get some sort of a sarcastic clap for that, Jos Verstappen. Good job.
I agree. And Helmut Marko didn't agree. Here's what Helmut had to say. Helmut said,
"Goodbye, good luck, and good riddance."
No, he didn't say that.
He would love to say that to Jos Verstappen.
Yeah.
That may be the only time him and I agree on something, right? Out he goes.
Always pulling at those threads, Jos. So this is what he said, quote, "Well, I would say that it's a natural development when you've been as successful as we've been that people are poached. Courtney had an offer that was significantly more attractive in terms of position and financially, and that was the case for most of the people mentioned in that list that I gave. So they had a very nice offer, financial package, and position. And they chose to leave. And that's typically how that always happens, right?
And it's a commingling of things.
It is.
You've left jobs. I've left jobs. I've left jobs that are the same, grade. It's not a promotion. And I've had managers that never came to terms with that. Because if you leave for a promotion, there's nothing I can do about that, right? I can only do so much to match what some other team is going to pay you. So it gets me off the hook by saying something like that. I've certainly had managers that are like, "So you're leaving because it's a promotion?" I'm like, "No, it's not a promotion. It's a lateral." And they're like, "Oh, right. The problem is you." So, a promotion is probably only part of it. So, I mean, it makes sense that that's what Helmut Marko is going to say. He's not going to say, "We suck, so they left." But it does give you something as management to hold on to, even if it's only a partial truth that they left because there's a better offer somewhere else.
Right. So they're working on their new wind tunnel. They're still dealing with World War II grade wind tunnels over there. And
Stonehenge.
Yes. Yeah, right. And then I got to think, well, part of me wonders if the cost reduction penalties they incurred over the overspending might not have played a role in key person retention, right? So there's only so much you can afford to do to fend off better offers. I mean, if they come with Adrian, or they come even if Adrian was in the exempt category, but even your senior management, there's only so much money. And if you've got a penalty on your cost spend, things are tight and they're trying to improve their car. And, it had to play a role in that. And while being poached is nothing new in F1, I do wonder how much impact the internal drama around Horner may or may not have had in accelerating the willingness to be poached, right? It's one of the things. Yeah, it's one thing to be a key person and be poached when a team is at the top of their game, but to see so many leave is kind of a bit odd.
Yeah, while I'd like to believe I am the Adrian Newey of survey design, it is complicated, those different things that you have to look for to find another place. And especially, anybody, especially if we don't know their names readily, but, it's never easy, right?
Right.
It takes a lot to leave, right? Inertia is people will stay at a crappy job just because it's hard to look for another job and it's hard to find other people, and it's hard, especially in Formula One. We talked about it with the drivers last week, right? That there's a lot of things that go to that equation of, should I hire this driver? And then for the driver, should they go to that team, even though there's only so many teams? That's the story of Ricciardo, right? He thought Renault would be better. I thought it's a better fit for him as a person, but he wasn't winning.
Right.
So that's the trade-off.
Right. Yeah, I'm connecting dots that may not exist there, but I just thought it was kind of interesting that they'd lost so many. How much of that did play into it? Was their cost cap penalty kind of handcuffing them and their ability to retain some of those key personnel roles? I have to think that they were, but who knows, And at the end of all of this, he also gets to stomp out of the garage and say, "See, I told you so."
It doesn't help.
It's not helping anybody.
Right? At the end of the day, it did not help. It may not have been what pushed somebody out of the door, but it is definitely the cherry on the end of that broom or whatever.
Right.
That, I'm gone. This is too much.
Right.
And on
each
top
of those,
all the other things. Mm-hmm.
Each of those people too, Grace, had to be thinking, we're winning championships, top of the game, blah, 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 blah. But each individual person has a role, an aspiration, advancement when you're at a team like that, race director. And those kind of roles are there, and while the organization may be 1,200 people, there's only so many of those roles at the top of the pyramid, and they don't change that frequently. And so there's these jockeying for positions, and each person has their own aspiration. And probably thinking, when am I at my maximum earning potential, and where could I go to, in James Vowell's case, being the strategy guy and an incredibly successful team, I'm sure he had a great salary and all those sort of things. But if he ever wanted to be a team boss, Toto probably wasn't walking away any day soon. And the opportunity to go to Williams and be the head, is one of those rare opportunities. And, I don't think that applies to Adrian because he is ahead of everything car related, and he just gets to do it with a different mark, and fair enough. But the other guys, Jonathan Wheatley and those guys, these are good opportunities for them.
It's similar to you brought up James Vowell. Do you want to be the Rubens Barrichello to Toto's Michael Schumacher, or do you want to go to Honda, right?
Right.
So, and different people want to do different things, some people will want to stay in a certain position, but you're right. There's a greener pasture out there, and I would love to be in the job interview where somebody asks Jonathan Wheatley where he sees himself in 5 years, right?
Yeah, right.
Running this whole damn team. That's what I see myself doing.
Jonathan, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Running F1.
That's right. I'm the president now.
Where do you, Fred Vasseur, where do you see yourself firing Stefano Domenicali?
That's right. Hate that guy.
Yeah. See how I tied my job search into the whole job related? Wasn't that a nice segue?
It worked perfectly.
It worked perfectly. Yeah,
Mm,
unfortunately, I didn't. I'm not an Adrian Newey, so I can't. Red Bull's not going to hire me as the key designer, unfortunately.
No, but I think in some ways, I feel like I say this all the time, but like in some ways, Formula One is very different than us regular people. In some ways, it's exactly the same, right?
Yeah.
Humans are humans. People management is people management, and Adrian Newey has hopes and dreams just like all of us. So
He sure does.
What he wants to do, and
I share 32% of Adrian's hopes and dreams.
Yeah.
So, maybe 34. It's give or take.
nobody can hire me to do any of those things. But yeah,
Right.
I aspire to many of the same things that Adrian Newey does.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
right.
Yeah. So let's see. Next up, let's talk about Andretti, shall we?
Oh, because what's a show without talking about my favorite human being on the
I
planet?
know.
Oh, I
You
can't
and
wait.
Greg are like this.
Well, I mean, on this
so-
one thing. I don't know what else Greg and I agree on, but we agree on this one.
That and popcorn farts, apparently. So it's a Greg Maffei quote, not mine. So anyway, we mentioned a couple of weeks ago, whatever, the news story that Michael Andretti had stepped away from his day-to-day running of Andretti Global. And and at the time we're it's interesting. We didn't really dive too much into it because I wasn't quite sure that the playing field was sort of sussed out, if you will, about who was going to take the helm, and there were some other details. Wasn't quite sure what all that would mean other than it's immediate. And we even mentioned, I think I was just speculating that, it had certainly something to do with F1, although on the press release, it didn't really say that, but, logical, because that's their focus.
It's
So I
not
thought it
gonna
had
say-
something to do.
It's not going to say we hate his face. End of press release.
Yeah, right. Time to go.
Yeah, right. That would,
Yeah.
I mean, that would be helpful if it did, but we really have
Yeah.
to read between the lines on that one.
Right. So we talked about that, but it seems that the Silverstone operation is full steam ahead. They got 260 full-time employees, a wind tunnel and design work being done, wind tunnel work done, crash tests on some of their parts, suspension, and a focus on delivering their first chassis in January, Grace.
But do they have a nose cone? Have we seen the nose cone?
So, and I referenced that in the notes. I say that's a lot of. I know. You see, we're we think the same.
We share the same inside jokes.
I know we do. Well, that's what it is. So as soon as I read that, you're like, aha! But do they have the toaster?
That's right.
Right. So So that's a lot of work and resources invested without an official place on the grid.
What are those people doing?
I don't know. And divorcing myself with the politics, we'll get into that in a minute. But if you just look at that on the surface of it, you've got, MBS initially approved them for their application. F1 did not. And then MBS kind of backtracks and says, maybe you ought to buy a team. Thanks. Cutting insight there. Yeah, we already tried that with Sauber. Didn't work. Yeah. So that, that was like, well, so much for expansion, just buy another team, right?
Right.
It's interesting, though, to your point that you alluded to, and in my notes, it's interesting when you juxtapose Andretti's operational prowess versus the teams in the past, like even Haas or USF1,
That's right.
who only had a nose cone and an office.
All right.
And what about Stefan GP, who showed up to the testing to try to get in, loitering outside the fence, and they didn't have E-tires for the car?
Zoran GP, the best.
Yeah, remember that?
I do
Zoran-
never forget.
There's really Stefan GP, but his name is Zoran, and
Because that
and
was
Grace
such a
and I
missed
like
opportunity.
Zoran. It was a total
If
because he
your name
could have
is
got the 007 James Bond blimp, Zoran blimp, and
Fired.
hovered around each race. It would have been.
And marketing
Perfect.
is the least of my strengths. So I feel like if I'm like marketing opportunity missed, you really missed it, right? Because
Right.
I would have never Zoran. You could have been Zoran
Right.
GP and you went with Stefan GP.
You could have been
Boring.
floating around at every racetrack in your Zoran blimp.
Yeah,
Totally. Dropping down like fake braces so you could do. Everybody could do the Mandela effect with Jaws and the.
Right. That's right.
Just really
nice
play
grill.
into it. Yeah.
Maybe you should talk to Andretti and see if they need 261 full-time employees.
That's an idea, because Michael and I are like this,
Exactly. I mean, what do they hire them for? What are they doing?
Well, they're all beavering away making a Formula One program in a car.
For what?
For Formula One.
That they're not in.
Yes, but here's where the plot thinnens, if you will.
Okay.
So you might be asking, okay, so gosh, with all of that, how can an operation like Andretti not bring any value to F1 when many of the teams in the recent past were nowhere near the operational investment? Is the GM tie-in something that's just a letterhead alliance that F1 isn't keen about? Is it a possibility they'll deliver an engine for 2026? No, but many reports suggest that maybe they might. Since there's no Renault engine supply anymore, because Renault's getting the heck out of the engine making business, what does it mean for Andretti? Do they go for a Honda for the next couple of years? The initial decline letter to Andretti mentioned the engine was kind of a critical point to Formula One, and some suggested that GM might be working on something for 2028. Who knows? It's all speculation at this point. The entire situation has a stale smell of politics and money hoarding attached to it, but I will say this. If Andretti isn't allowed to join and walks away, the next team that does actually join had better have a much bigger operation than Andretti, more resources, more money, and have more of a clear value proposition to F1. If it doesn't, we'll know that all of this was just political theater, and there could be a precedent there. And if you're Andretti, it could prompt a lawsuit, right? Maybe. And then I was thinking on my own, and then you and I were talking about an article that was discussing this in some more detail, but I was just thinking about this top of my head, and I thought, well, Andretti getting out to me means he's divorcing himself of the organization. They've got a second in charge who's taking the helm, and maybe that means whatever politics friction that Andretti had with Formula One could possibly put over at the side, and now Andretti F1 and 260 some odd people could be taken serious as a legitimate F1 expansion team if Michael wasn't involved. If he was the linchpin of why they weren't getting in Formula One, then to walk away from it and let it be its own entity, maybe that would improve relations, right? But then you had sent me a link, and we were reading this article that was saying, what, Grace? That it's very much a personal issue between Greg Maffei and Michael Andretti.
He literally does not like him. Yes, there was a quote from the Miami Grand Prix where he's just like, yeah, that guy's a jerk face. I don't like him. I don't want him in my sport. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it that it was like very, very specifically, definitely no, it's there's no way for somebody to be like, wow, your father kind of way out of it. Well, maybe he just doesn't like Marco. Nope. It was very clear that that's where the beef was, and that's who it was with. But any way this plays out, this is the ultimate get some popcorn, right? Because I hope the next team that does get in has less resources and less people and literally has two sticks rubbed together that it's called its wind tunnel, right? Because then it's for sure, I agree, right? Like that it's for sure personally about Michael Andretti.
Yeah.
Maybe even if they just say that, well, you're not going to be involved. We're not going to have to see your face every weekend. Great. We'll let you in. Don't call it Andretti. Cool. Like that would be great. Like the more it's specifically about that one person in a way that again, we were just talking about Christian Horner. It's not like Christian Horner is a great guy, right?
Yeah.
So, but yet he's there and he's successful. There's a lot of people that's personalities I may not gel with who are successful, right? Despite my best attempts. But to be just like, no, I just don't like that guy. I love it. I love it. This is like
Yeah.
And especially because Michael Andretti is not going to step down, nor should he. Plus, he's Michael Andretti. Like, if it was just like literally any other last name on the planet, they would fade off. You know, even if it was like Roger Penske, this would, or, you know, it would fade away and we'd all forget. But it's Michael Andretti. Literally, if people can name one person, it's an Andretti. Usually Mario, but they can name an Andretti, right? Like, it's just crazy to me that, like, I hate this person so much that I won't take his name, which would lend so much credence to my sport and would be great for my sport. And we're making this inroad in America. Let's have the Andretti name. I hate him so much.
I know.
I'm not going to let this happen.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It's great. That's
yeah,
like,
what did he do to Greg? I mean,
I don't know.
Maybe he didn't like Michael Mario's sort of aggressive approach to Formula One, and they may have thought, okay, well, look, you're aristocracy in American motorsport, but not Formula One, and you don't come in here and roll us like that. That isn't how it rolls.
You know what it is? I'm expecting a Scooby-Doo ending, and that Greg is going to rip off his mask, and it's actually Ron Dennis, right?
Right. And he wouldn't have gotten away with it if it wasn't for you meddling kids.
But I'm thinking Scooby-Doo ending, it's actually Ron Dennis is the mastermind behind all of this. And then it would all make sense, right?
I like it.
Nice, Ron.
Yes, I like it. That would be good. Yeah, it's such a weird situation. We'll see. Look, if Michael steps down and they magically say, okay, well, they can.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's such an Andretti thing. And to your point, 3 races in American, if you want to capture the American interest in the series, attaching the Andretti name to it, the rest of America and American motorsport fans don't have the deep-seated hatred that Greg does for Andretti, And why not, if he's not going to be involved, okay, well, I don't want you anywhere near my series, but I will market the hell out of your name because of your dad, right?
Yeah, right. And I think that, and it would be interesting. GM isn't going to say anything. Not that they're a person, but, they're not going to come out and say something. But it would be interesting because what are you thinking? If you're sitting there, like, watching it. Like, to me, this is just popcorn enjoyment because I have no stake in any of this.
Right.
Could you imagine if you're at Cadillac right now and you're like, what are you doing?
Are we in? Are we out? Are we in?
Right?
Are we out?
Like, every day it would just be, I would just be fretful if I was GM in this proposition because you legitimately are trying to get into this sport.
Yeah.
You aren't just there because, Andretti needs to bring in an engine, right? Like, you're trying to get in there, and this is not what you were planning on.
Yeah. It's amazing. This will be interesting. Watch this space because it'll be interesting to see what the next moves are if they ever get in. Do they roll up shop? If another team comes in and gets in and they're nowhere near as resourced as Andretti has been, precedent's already been set.
I hope Drive to Survive is in that team meeting because
yeah, exactly.
They'll be like, right, okay, so we're going to let Andretti in, and you see everybody like, but Michael's not coming. Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, right.
All right, we're fine.
Who knows? And maybe getting Zach on the board over there was to try to help, soften Greg up a little bit. Zach's over McLaren. Look, we're running for the championship. We've got some clout. He's got a little swagger to him and say, look, Michael steps aside. Now it's Taurus. He's running things. Just, let him in. They're just a going team. They're awesome and they'll be great. And Michael's not involved. Who knows?
Speaking of Drive to Survive, this is also, I've always wanted to be the boom mic guy, not because that is a job I want, but because I want to be able to accidentally hit people on the head with the boom mic. That sounds like fun. Like, what was that, Michael Andretti? Oh, did I hit you with the boom mic?
Sorry about that.
I'm so sorry. I'm so far away.
Dunk. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Right? Like, I just would be like, I have bad aim, right? And especially because, right, the Drive to Survive guys, like, I'm impressed by the, like, how does that, the boom mics are very far away. And anyway, I would just be like, oh, my fault. I'm so sorry.
Yeah. If you and I had the boom mic,
I'm sorry.
We'd turn into like the Three Stooges with a 2x4 routine, swinging around, knocking people down. Yeah. That's exactly what it'd turn into.
It'd be great. And so that's why those folks are professionals and they're doing a professional job. And it's not me because I would not. I would get fired by day one. Like, I'm sure that's like boom mic 101. Don't hit people with it.
Yeah.
Oh, but it would feel great.
know.
Just be like, boink. Oh, I'm sorry.
And for those listening, Three Stooges is a really old comedy show. You have to Google that one. Which it just reminds me. I was on the gram earlier today, and I was flipping through, and there was some sort of interview with Will Buxton. I don't even know who it was. I can never remember. I just, I see who was talking, and it was Will, and he was I think he was promoting his book.
I was thinking he has a book, so he's been out there.
Okay, so that's what he was doing.
Yeah, he has a book.
And so anyway, he was talking about how much he hates gatekeeping, and he was furious that that Formula One social media is a toxic environment, and he was saying 1 in 3 Formula One viewers is a fan less than 5 years. And he was saying, when we go on about Michael Schumacher, they don't know who that is. They didn't watch him race. They don't have any idea. And Senna died 30 years ago. They don't have a clue what we're talking about. And so this is what his book was trying to do is to go back and say, here's the history, and it's not scary, and teach it in I don't know what's scary about Formula One history. I don't know why that has to be scary. Maybe he was talking about it, current Formula One history books that you buy are weighty reads, and maybe that's what he was saying. And so he was going on about that, and I thought, and he goes, and they won't know until we teach them.
Right.
And so I thought that was interesting because I watched Senna race, I watched Schumacher race, I watched a lot of people even before those guys race. I watched Emerson Fittipaldi race the streets of Monaco, right? So I thought about that, but then I thought, I don't know, is there anything new under the sun here? When I joined Formula One, it was well beyond its start date. I mean, I never saw Fangio race. I didn't see Jim Clark race, and I would argue Jim Clark is the GOAT, right?
But I think the thing is, it isn't just you didn't watch these people. It is the way people present that to you. So I've often said to Formula One, like, if you go to watch, maybe this is just what men do to women. Whenever I've gone to watch football games at a bar, first of all, there's always the awkward moment where I'm like, no, I'm actually watching this game. I'm not really here to talk to you, but thanks. That's great. Because I don't know, for some reason that's not believable that I'm here to watch this game. But there's this like, well, you can't possibly know. You never played the sport. That's a very different approach to, the Steelers' history than I wasn't alive in the 70s. So you can have a conversation with somebody that is, hey, this is what the steel curtain was, or this is, these are the, the Immaculate Reception. Like
Franco Harris. I was a huge Franco Harris fan.
So here are these historical moments that as a Steelers fan I know about, but I didn't live through. I wasn't alive, or I was 2, right? Like I don't remember these things. And there's a way to talk about that. And you can watch documentaries and you can gather this information. But it's very different when somebody says, well, I don't know why you think you're a fan. You never played the sport. How much could you possibly know about it?
Yeah, I don't.
So it isn't just that you didn't live through watching Fangio race. It is how people talk about what could you know? What could you know patting you on the head because you didn't watch 20 years ago or 40 years ago?
Yeah, I mean, I got some of that, but I don't really give a damn about that. Whatever. I mean, I can read everything Jim Clark did and his accomplishments and draw my own conclusion when I've never seen him race. But the thing about it is I think in my mind, part of, and perhaps that's what Will's trying to do in his book, to his credit. I haven't seen the book. I don't know. Will, you can send me a copy and I'll do a review. But maybe, that's in essence what he's saying. Because when I got into Formula One, there wasn't the social media.
Right.
There wasn't the toxicity. Although the whole reason we started this website back in 2005 was because I was sick and tired of getting flamed on Autosports forums.
Yes.
Because my post count, I just joined. I've been watching Formula One for decades by that point, but I just joined. And my post count apparently meant I was new to the sport. And so they berated me like I didn't have a clue about who Williams was or what Senna. It was ridiculous. So we started our website because of that, right? And I think, and we've always approached And we've always said it should be a safe harbor for new fans and veterans alike. And then last year I was on a rant because I had all these new F1 fans telling me to shut the hell up, and I didn't know what I was talking about. And it was like, we were trying to make a safe place for new fans to meet and discuss with veterans, and now I kind of felt like it was the other way around, right? And so, but I think to his point is very much like when you got into the sport, or I did, even several decades before that, is that if we heard about someone like if you heard about Rennie Arnoux, you had to go and you researched it. And you found out, and you dug around, and you found out, well, what's cool about Rennie Arnoux? What did he do, and where did he race, or Tambasi, or whoever?
But I think your point is valid in the fact that when I started watching, the reason I was like, oh, who's that person, is because it was mentioned on the broadcast, right? It was because Varsha was like, oh, look, there's Jackie Stewart.
Right.
Oh, well, Varsha pointed out Jackie Stewart. I knew who Jackie Stewart was. I don't know. It's just the first name. But, he pointed that person out. That's important. Or Peter Windsor would do his pit lane walk and he would stop and talk to somebody. I'm like, I don't know who that person is. So, you could get on the little internets, or you could find some auto sports about it.
Right.
That's a much easier way for me to get into the sport and for me to find out about it. There's nobody... Peter Windsor isn't coming through my TV, or Bob Varsha isn't coming through my TV and going, you're such a noob. You don't know who that guy is? Oh, you never raced a car, right? So I think I stand by it is not that you watch longer, I watch longer. It is how people present that information to people that is what makes it off-putting to new fans. Because especially when you're new, and if you're just getting into the car side of it, because unlike stick and ball sports, we all drive a car, but none of us drive Formula One cars. So there is some uptake on the technology. And I think that a point I've made before is that you can watch Formula One for whatever depth you want. I watch Red Zone, and there's always a touchdown montage.
Yeah,
sometimes I just watch the Red Zone so that I can just watch the touchdown montage, right? Sometimes I don't sit there and just watch a whole game. And right now, like I was joking last week, I didn't even realize the Steelers were playing Monday Night Football, right? But I'm sure if I had said that on the internet, somebody would have been like, oh, why you call yourself a Steelers fan? Right, because I'm not in this moment in my life that into it. It'll come and go because life happens, and that's where we all are. And I love going to a bar with people and watching the game or something like that. But all it takes is one person to just be like, rah, 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 and it's like, fine, I'm done.
Oh, I know.
That's so easy with social media that people just...
It is. Yeah,
I
take so much incoming on social media. I just, I ignore it because it's pointless. I mean, I remember, a couple of years ago, the Mercedes, when they kind of banned, I don't know if it was the Frick or whatever it was in the middle of the season. I can't remember what it was. Mm-hmm. And they were just going off at me about it. And nobody's, it's always Mercedes. They're always picking on Lewis and Mercedes, and nobody, they've never, banned some element of a car, mid-season just to hobble them. I'm like, well, no, they have. So, no, you're full of, you don't know what the hell you're talking about. Well, okay, go look up the J dampers with Renault.
Right.
Go look that up, that changed their season instantly.
Yes.
Right. So, and that was mid-season, but it's that kind of toxicity and stuff. And I get it. And, to Will's point, I'm sure he's written it in a very, fun way that'll help newer fans, ease into some of the weighty 50, 60-year history of the motorsport of the series, and that'd be great. But we've been doing that all along. We used to have me, who was writing for our website, and he would do then and nows, and so he would talk about the way things are happening now in Formula One, like pit stops or track evolution or whatever it might be, and then he would juxtapose that with the way it was in history, and you could draw some correlation there, and it would make sense. And so we've been doing that since 2005, but.
I think it is like watching, comic book movies with comic book nerds.
Yeah, right.
Like, so some people get very hung up on, well, that's not how it was in the comic book, or that's not what happened, or why did they change that? And I have, I've read, some, but I don't have the level of knowledge that other people do. And it's just like, well, why does that matter? Well, to some people, that's a big investment that they've read and they expect it to be a certain way. And so I think that it takes more to say, well, in the comic books, X was like this and they made it like this, and here's why I like it or don't like it. That takes much more deep introspection than just, I don't like it.
Yeah, right,
So,
right.
I mean,
right.
I just think there's a way to talk about history, to learn about the history.
Yeah.
And to learn about the technology. And I think for the new people now, again, as we've talked about, like, at least you don't have to wait 3 weeks for an Autosport to arrive in the mail that you paid $80,000 for, because it's the only way you can get news, which was only 20 years ago, right? Like, not that long ago. Now, you know, I have a subscription to F1 TV, and there's tons of content, both old and new. And, you know, it's like buying, you know, ESPN, right? Like, you can, if you're interested in a specific sport, there's a 30 for 30 on everything, right? And so you can just dig into, why was that important? Or why was this team important? Or why are we talking about this from this era? You have that ability now in a way that wasn't there before, but that's the negative side of it, is that it also gives the people the ability to poke and mock people. And
it does. It's you know, and I get it. I think F1's try to be seeker sensitive, you know, and that, for lack of a better term, you know, they've got a lot of content that they've put up and trying to ease people into the sport, and that makes sense.
And I think people also, it's hard to not feel that nobody cares about you as a long-term fan. And I think that, not you personally, but I think as a collective on a macro level, that if somebody's been watching for a long time, now all of a sudden these new people show up and now everybody's like into Formula One. I mean, I find it's very weird now that it used to be that I used to tell people I did a podcast and they'd be like, what? And you've never met the guy? What? You know, like it was like some sort of creeper catfish scenario going on here. And then Formula One, people were like, is that like NASCAR? No, you know, the Indy 500 was as close as I could get people.
Yeah, right.
Now people are like, have you been to Vegas for the F1 race? I just met you. Why do you know this? Right?
Yeah.
Like, so there's still some part of me that still has to get used to the fact that in the United States, it's now very commonplace in a way it's never been in my entire existence as a fan.
Yeah.
So I think it's hard for people sometimes too to be like, oh, I watched this band when they were just scrapping it in a college tour, and now they're doing stadiums, and now you people all show up, and you think you know everything, right? There is some part that's hard not to feel that too for people. So.
It is, and it you know, for better or worse. I mean, they mean it well, but I bumped into somebody and they saw the print behind me and they're like, "Oh, do you like Formula One?" Yeah, and I said, "Yeah, I do." Yeah, and they said, "Oh man," he goes, "I went to the race and blah blah," and he said, "You ought to go, if you like Formula One, you ought to go to one of the races, you know, because I was there and I got to go into this and that," and I was like, "Yeah, no, I know, yeah, I know, I've been to many, you know, I get it." So anyway, but yeah, they mean well. All right. Let's jump off. Hey, good luck with that book, Will. So let's talk about what is Toyota doing with Haas? Now, I saw this headline when it came out, and because of other things going on in my life, it took me a little while to get in and kind of read the fine print, right? So Toyota announced a technical partnership with Haas, and my first thought was, reading the headline only, I didn't read the article, I thought, oh, maybe Toyota's thinking of coming back to F1 as an engine maker again, right?
Suck it, Ferrari.
Yeah. And, you know, it made sense if you consider the explosive growth of F1 since 2009, when Toyota tucked tail and ran along with Honda and BMW back then. And I thought, oh, are they getting back in? Are they thinking about maybe doing an engine program for 2026 or 2028, something? I wasn't sure. So then I thought, okay, I gotta make time to go read this, right? So that's not it. Instead, what Toyota is going to work with Haas on is at a technical level with drivers, engineers, mechanics, all involved in a test program, as well as working on aerodynamic development, design, and manufacturing. I thought, oh, that's interesting on many levels. So Toyota chairman Akio Toyoda said this, quote, please make sure that tomorrow's headlines don't read Toyota finally returns to F1. Rather, it would be great to see headlines and articles that inspire Japanese children to dream of the possibility that they too could one day drive the world's fastest cars, end quote.
Yeah.
So the intent there is really about development and investing in the human capital side of this relationship versus the sporting element of it. The partnership is there to help ramp up the driver development program, increase the understanding of the engineers and mechanics involved in Haas's test program, data analysis, aerodynamic developments. All of those are things that they're hoping to sort of get out of this. And I read that as Haas may be thinking that their team could, use more eyes, obviously, on their situation, on their car design, than just Dallara, and perhaps be an incubator for exceptional talent in Japan.
Yeah, I think that's the big.
Yeah.
I think Dallara was good as a starter wife, right? Like they were good, but now
As a first wife.
Now we've moved on, and now you're ready for your real wife. So
It may be.
I think that Dallara just, and I don't have a dog in the fight with Dallara. I just don't think that they can give Haas what they need now. I think that happens in sports with coaches, right? Like sometimes after a rebuild year, you need a coach that can like pick you up and get you going. But then you need the guy after that goes, I've gone to championships. Right? Like, so I think that Dallara was able to get them only to a certain point, and they never were ever going to get them to that next point in a way that this kind of partnership with Toyota will do.
Patron viewer in the audience, Jason, says, I feel like Toyota is the Ross Perot of Formula One. They're in, they're out. They're in, they're out. See, now, here's the deal. See, now, you got a pie chart.
That's right.
Yeah, chart.
That's an old school joke. That's great.
That is an old school joke. Excuse me. So it would be very odd not to consider some sort of technology and car design chops that Toyota brings to, from their WEC program. I'm sure they've got a lot of, intellectual property that Haas can leverage, there. And their original concept of harvesting the technology and the parts list, the listed parts program and that kind of thing. Toyota clearly feels this is a human resources development program for them. And to have a program, their emerging talent, all of that investment and innovation, everything that gets crammed in there, they can dabble around in the front end or at the sharp end of motorsport, in motorsport technology. And they can make an investment, they can innovate there, they can prototype there. I wonder how, and I'm not quite sure, and I kind of read it quickly towards the end, but I was wondering how this plays into their whole cost cap restriction on the P&L. And apparently, what Komatsu said was that it was very much the same as how they expense the Ferrari and Dallara thing, that it's done through sponsorship funds, not operational or not a CapEx, apparently. So maybe that's the way that they get around that on their P&L. Toyota, then it said that Toyota is going to help Haas develop their first driving simulator. They normally use Ferraris.
Right.
And they're going to take advantage of the TPC testing program, which is testing 2-year-old cars. You can test those quite a bit. And so they're going to do that. As for Ferrari, their Haas is signed through 2028, and they said we very much are continuing with their engines and gearbox. Where it got a little cloudy is on the Dallara side.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely where this is heading, right? That's who we're replacing in our cadre of people right now. It's Dallara who's losing out. Yeah,
and it's interesting because I remember when Haas came in, and I don't think it was the first year they were in. Maybe it was. You and I were talking about it, and I just did it was a real junior league sort of research. I was trying just quickly to see how many races or championships in Formula One a Dallara chassis has won, and I don't remember
none
there being championships. There could have been a race win, not a lot. And so I always thought, I don't know, maybe Dallara's great making some IndyCar chassis and stuff like that, but I don't know about F1 and that program, kind of what Haas and Dallara designed is kind of what they had for the year, and then maybe we could put different strikes on the wing or something. But I think they've evolved a lot, obviously, since then. But I do think this is an opportunity for them to really tap into potentially what Toyota could help them deliver in a chassis development program, an aerodynamic design program, versus going to Toyota and say, would you make us a new engine and gearbox?
Which, I think this, I think for all of this is very future looking, right?
Yeah,
As you said, right? They're with Ferrari at least until 2028. So if we look, so the earliest, you're looking like 2026, we're looking farther out. So I think in that sense, it gives Toyota also a chance to kind of suss out the situation.
Yeah, right.
Maybe we'd like to beat Michael Andretti to being the next team on the grid.
Maybe.
Right? So this gives them a way to kind of suss things out. And that, and again, they get to develop the personnel that they would need, the 261 people that they would need if they'd ever want to come back and support, right? And it gives them a space to develop those folks too in this technological place. And, I think that much like we were talking about, I just think that, I guess what still kind of rubs me weird, I didn't have a good transition, which is what I was hoping for. What I think still rubs me weird about this story is that it's just more people in different places.
Yeah.
Right? Their headquarters is in North Carolina. They have the manufacturing factory in England.
Toyota's in Cologne.
Right. They get their supplies. And that manufacturing in Italy. Like, you've just added another location because at least Dallara was also in Italy, right?
Yeah.
So maybe at least they were near each other in Italy.
Hey, why are Maranello picking up the engine? Could you swing over to Dallara? It's that sort of thing. But now you got to come back through the EU. You got to stop at Cologne and you got to pick up,
So I get that there's this. Yeah, I get that they're adding this. It all makes sense, right? And of course,
they're going to be like,
Matsu points
how
out
much is our DHL bill this year?
Right.
What?
Right. I just, maybe they just have when they do the land freight, they just have you can just have the truck make a stop on its way to the next race. I don't know. It just seems to me that's always a problem in any organization. That sort of, 4-location bottleneck just seems like made it worse. But I think this is good news for Haas. I think this is good for Komatsu, right? I think that in the same way that Dallara was the place where Haas starts, and now they're looking to Toyota to continue that.
Maybe Toyota is the place that Haas ends.
Yeah. Well, all right. You went very.
I'm just bookending your sentence there.
I was thinking that could be their next future, right? Like I was talking about coaches,
right.
But I think
it was
the same
dark,
thing,
Dave. Sorry.
Like Steiner was the first, and I don't think the team, we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Steiner.
Yeah, but
I don't think he was the future.
What the problem is just as well as I do.
Yeah,
I do, but I think that's why the move to Komatsu was important. Right?
Very, because he's the architect of this deal.
So that's what I'm saying is that I think that we can only get so far with Gunther, and now we've moved on to Komatsu, and that this is now very future looking, and that's good for Haas, and that Komatsu has convinced Gene that this is a good idea, so that's good, right? That they have some relationship, and they're doing better, not worse, even though they're last. So
right, and let me put it this way for Haas employees, who I've defended staunchly over the years, is you got to look at it this way: Haas outgrew Gunther. He was only going to take it so far, and that's basically get it into Formula One. And maybe Komatsu is the next guy to take it to that next level with Toyota, and it's great. Love it. I won't spend a lot of time on this story, Grace.
Okay.
Because I don't want to be too long on the podcast, but if you're a Mick Schumacher fan...
time, people. Calm down.
Oh, I know. I get chewed all the time.
Whatever. We're not even quite at the hour mark yet.
Not yet. So if you're a Mick Schumacher fan and you were upset that Alpine chose Jack Doohan over him, you may be happy to know that he has emerged as a contender for Audi Sauber. The prevailing rumor was that it's either Valtteri or Bortoleto. But the teams say they're in no hurry and that Mick is on their list. I mean, it couldn't hurt
Congratulations.
having 2 German drivers and a Schumacher name. But has he cured the penchant for taking front wings off in the Mercedes simulator? I don't know.
I mean, that's worked out great for Haas. Why wouldn't it work out here as well?
Yeah, right. Why wouldn't it be good?
I mean, I'm glad that Alpine. I mean, I guess I wish Jack Toon would have ended up somewhere other than Alpine, but I am not going to be, forlorn about that choice of Jack Toon. But no. I think Mick Schumacher, sure. I mean, I don't think that. I think it's a red herring. I don't think they're actually any closer to a decision, and I don't know that Mick Schumacher is actually going to end up in that seat. But there's no harm in saying he's on the list, right?
It's like The Exorcist. I need a young driver and an old driver.
Right. So you're on the list. Todd's on the list, right? Todd is on the short list, to replace Kimi Räikkönen
I'm on the
at
short
Ferrari,
list
right?
at Sauber at this point.
Right.
Yes.
And so I think that's exactly where we are. We're all on the short list to replace, somebody at Sauber. So
Mattia just keeping it real.
That's right. We're just everybody this week, so you just watch out who might else be on that list. But I don't know that it means really anything.
All right. Let's do some Alvin's Cat, shall we?
Let's do it.
All right.
Hey, smoke up, Johnny!
So, what do you got for us this week?
So I was looking. So we're at the end of the autumn break here, if you will.
The autumn break, which is right after the summer break.
That's right. The autumn break, so there's not a lot of news going on yet because we haven't quite hit the ramp up to Austin, right?
Yeah.
And that'll be in 3 or 4 days. We'll have news all of a sudden and unbox videos because we're now doing the ramp up to Austin. But as of right now, there's not a lot. And so I was kind of reflecting on how much that I'm going to miss Carlos Sainz at Ferrari because he just brings out something in Charles Leclerc that is enjoyable. Leclerc, that bromance, Leclerc is a funny guy, but I think he's kind of like Sebastian Vettel is an inherently funny person. I think he's the kind of person you want to bring to a meal when you're like, this might be a little uncomfortable, right? He's going to make jokes. He's going to know things. It'll be a great conversation. He's that kind of an extrovert. It'll be great. Charles Leclerc is a funny guy, but he takes a little warming up, right? So he plays well with somebody like a Sebastian Vettel or somebody like a Carlos Sainz who's just immediately personable and funny, and then it just brings it out in Charles Leclerc. And so I will miss the Leclerc-Sainz bromance because I don't think it'll be the same with Lewis. I don't think Lewis is as into the unboxedness. I mean, he doesn't even do the Formula One unboxed videos, right? So he's not as into the unboxedness in the way that Sainz is. And so I will just miss that. But that said, I am definitely looking forward to the Carlos Alex Albon unboxed video news. That's going to be
Those should be funny.
Because those two are funny on their own.
I
so
know.
Together, I look forward to this and the enjoyment. And so I am sad that Carlos is leaving Ferrari from a person perspective, not from a driver. I think he'll have a good time at Williams. I think it'll fit him well. And I look for good success. So, I was there for that. And then I didn't know. Have you started the new season of Hell's Kitchen?
Yes.
Okay. That face said it all, right? I don't know. This year's theme is head chefs only. I'm give up on the gimmick. You already just have a red team and a blue team split by sex. Just leave it at that.
Not kind of a weird assortment of people?
It is.
I'm not really finding myself liking any one of them.
No, I don't really have I'm not bonded with. Yeah, you're right. Usually, early on, either it's because of location or personality. Yeah, Todd, he's my guy. I hope he makes it to the end. You're right. I really don't have a sense of
he could go in and say you're all eliminated, go home, and I'm okay,
right.
whatever.
Show's over. Cool.
Yeah, whatever.
So I'm hoping. Because sometimes I feel that way in the beginning, just because there's so many people, and so it's kind of hard in the first couple episodes to really gel because there's just more people than I need 8 people. That's good. And I'm ready for this, right? There's still a little too many people yet to kind of figure out who's going to make it or not. But I don't know. It just doesn't have the same vibe. And they're in Connecticut this year instead of LA. And
there's a problem.
The rewards suck. I would just put that out.
Hey, we're going to go kayak in a muddy river with industrial waste in it.
Yes, right? The last, you could have had a night in the Venetian. But instead, you're going to go kayaking down a river. Like, this sucks.
What's next? You and the entire blue team are going to eat a wonderful dinner at Waffle House.
Right. So right on the girls that they were like, yeah, we're kayaking. This is going to be great. But I was just like,
right.
You guys got robbed. You
I
got
know.
robbed. This is like the year when they won. I can't remember the guy's name now. When he was good and he made it, and then he ended up being the head chef in Atlantic City. I'm like, your gift sucks.
Yeah.
If you're going to be the head chef at Hell's Kitchen in Atlantic City.
Atlantic City, yeah.
I hope you get a promotion somewhere else, right?
Yeah.
Because that's gotta suck. So
Right.
I'm still just waiting for when they're gonna be getting because DC just got a Hell's Kitchen like a year ago. So I'm still waiting for
Hell's
that
Kitchen DC,
competition.
and then
Yes.
when he opens the dining room, it'll
Yes.
show you and Flip pulling up in the vet, and you getting out.
Absolutely.
It'll have like a tight shot of the heels you're wearing as you go up the steps, and Flip will be there in his tux, and yep.
I do own gowns, but I think that's a little too fancy, right? Like
Well, I don't know. It's just,
in between. I
it's
don't
always-
know. But I do think it's funny. So yeah. So when it's the chef for, I haven't been yet to the one in DC. I keep thinking we should go, and then I'm like, well, maybe one of these times. But it's also weird because the wharf, which is where it's located, used to be like a dive. And
Yeah.
It's still very weird to me. I used to work over there, and I'm like, there used to be one terrible bar, and that was it, and a Phillips Seafood, and now there's like all this. And $100 a plate Hell's Kitchen, but like, okay, cool. It's weird when that happens, but I'll go someday and I'll let you know. But
Yeah.
I'll be excited when that's where the competition is. That would be pretty great.
Sweet. All right. Are you ready for No Shit headlines?
I'm ready.
All right, here we go. First one up, quote, F1 team chief Flavio Briatore, 74, rekindles romance with 44-year-old model ex-wife. I'm not going to pronounce it. It's Elisabetta
Yeah,
Gregoraci?
I
There you
think
go.
Gregoraci.
Gregoraci? Okay.
That sounds good.
There you go. Hey, what's 30
I mean-
years?
I was going to say 74 to 44 seems pretty reasonable. I mean, that's like in his age group
Yeah.
as far as like people Flavio dates.
Right.
I mean, he's not Bill Belichick. I mean, I think this is a pretty...
Right. So you got that going.
44. I'll give him that.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Right on. Go Flavio.
Go Flavio.
Jesus Christ.
Let's see. Next up. Now I have to put this as a correction because last week I was telling you about how the whole thing between Colapinto and Behrman and the girl, and the one was with so and then left Behrman to go back to Colapinto, and that whole thing,
Yeah.
Well, apparently she set the record straight, and the headline reads, influencer model at the center of Formula One's love triangle saga is single, all caps, claims close friend after reports she had rekindled relationship with Franco Colapinto after split with teenage sensation Oliver Behrman. So I just want to apologize to influencer model. Sorry, influencer model. She doesn't get a name in the headline, apparently. She's so
great.
important to write the story about, but not important enough to use her actual name. Although you name Colapinto and Behrman. Fair enough. See how it is?
I mean, right on you, ma'am, those
Yeah,
are your choices.
got to set it straight.
Yeah, right?
And this last one, this is, everybody's running for the hills here. This last one
Wait,
says,
before you move
What?
on, if you don't know who these people are, this is great. I love teenage sensation, Ollie Behrman.
yeah, teenage sensation.
Like he's a part of One Direction, right? Like
It's like the teen sensations, though, the Oneaters, the Wonders.
yeah, right? Like who are these people that
I don't know.
Formula One love triangle saga?
That's right.
Yes.
Lance
either.
Stroll, teen sensation.
That's it. From now on, that's his name.
Teen
Lance Stroll,
sensation, Lance
Teen
Stroll.
Sensation, Lance Stroll. I
That's
love it.
it.
Lancey, you're
Yes,
welcome.
I like it. Yep, you can market that free on us, Lance.
Happy Thanksgiving. We
Yep,
gave you a
happy
nickname.
Thanksgiving. Enjoy the back bacon.
That's right.
There you go. This last one is, quote, Lewis Hamilton deletes, all cap, social media posts that called P. Diddy a, quote, brother, and thanked the disgraced music mogul for, quote, always showing love. Ooh, no, ixnay. Before his sex trafficking indictment, Diddy's, not Lewis's. Clear to make that distinction there.
Right.
I mean, I don't know what Lewis does, but this is referring to P. Diddy's.
Yeah.
So I guess, all those evenings the weekends that, Lewis is staying at P. Diddy's pool house, I don't know.
Yeah. That's not, delete all of that as fast as possible. That's not going to work out well for you.
So Grace is deleting all of her praise for P. Diddy, all the good times that she done had up in his crib.
Yeah, because I'm, teenage sensation.
Yeah.
Over
Your
here.
teen sensation, Grace. Celebrates.
I think, lean into being the chairman of the Met. Lean out of any relationship you had with P. Diddy.
I don't know. Lewis, I think if I memory serves correct, I don't know. Maybe he was still hanging out and having fun with Diddy, this past year. I have no idea. I don't control his social calendar. I do remember this is quite a bit when he was younger, and Lewis is, he comes in, he's a phenom. He quite literally is a teen sensation. He comes in,
right.
Everybody wants a piece of Lewis. Everybody's pulling at him. He went 12 different ways. He's going to be a rock star, music, R&B, soul singer star. He's going to get married and have angel babies. He's going to, be in the fashion industry. He's going to do, all these different things he's going to do. And then he goes off the rails with his dad. And his dad ends up wrecking a priceless Porsche in a children's playground. And Lewis is suspended from wires over a Turkish opera. I mean, it all goes off the rails, right? So I feel bad for him that he went through all that. He shows up in the full, what was it, Bahrain? He was all dressed up in the white, and everybody's like, ugh. So anyway, we've actually watched Lewiston love and lose in real time. And we watched him grow up and went down certain roads, and that wasn't good. And it just kind of matured. And, we all do it, and I get it. But I think the whole P. Diddy thing was from years ago.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, we do, but I don't think any of us had our paths didn't cross with P. Diddy, right? Like, I think there's I've made mistakes. Not that kind of mistake. No. Wasn't me. No, that's not a tweet I have to delete, sir.
Would have walked away from all that.
I think that that's not going to do well for him. But I will say I did think that was great that he's the Met Gala chairman for one of the galas.
Well, good on him.
So it's pretty cool.
Good on him.
And
so what's coming out first, the P. Diddy list or the Epstein list? Which one's coming first?
Oh, oh man, that is not. That is not great.
Yeah, a lot of folks running nervous on that one. I'm happy to tell you I'm on neither of those lists.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Not really the target for those lists, but I'm not on.
I'm not the target either, Grace. I'm not the target. So
right on Lewis Hamilton.
There you go, buddy.
You do you, Ben.
You do you.
There's no stopping you.
There is no stop. I have that, and I haven't played it forever. I don't know if I can do it.
Get it there,
I can do that though. So anyway, all right. Well, that does it for this podcast. It's what we think about the news. You let us know what you think about the news, and you can do that by going to thepartfroma.com. Share your opinion. Just do a quorum of civility. As always, if you like this podcast, well, go to your favorite podcast player and give us a good rating. Show us some love. Share it with a friend. Share it on social media. I love it that everybody likes when we post our podcast, but I don't see a lot of people sharing it. So share it. And if you watch it, subscribe, hit the bell icon on YouTube.
Thumbs up.
Show us some love. I could use it now that I'm job hunting. I could use a little love. So there you go. And we will be back because I believe the USGP from Austin's this weekend.
Yes, so, you have 2 in a row with Paul. And
there's 2 in a row.
Three MotoGP races in a row.
Yes.
So we got a busy 2 weeks.
And Paul just missed out on the championship by 4 points. So I'll have to... I'll have to console him next week. We'll have to comfort him a little next week when he's on talking about Austin.
Send him a fruit basket.
Send him a Harry and David fruit basket. I think that's good. Cheer him up down there in the Dallas-Fort Worth region where he dwells. And he does dwell well.
Broods.
So there you go. I can't wait for all of his foodie pictures now that he's not on the road, though.
Well, that's true, right? I guess there is an upside.
There is an upside. Yeah, that's good.
It's always very inspirational ideas. I'm like, often I'm like, I would not have put those two things together. But now that you said it, that sounds delicious.
It does. And who can argue with it? Paul's inspirational. He's an inspirational man.
There's no stopping him either.
No stopping Paul. So anyway, all right. Until next week, when we come back to review the Austin Grand Prix, this is Todd, a.k.a. Negative Camber, saying so long, Grace.
See you in 3 weeks.
That's it, man. Game over, man. Game over. I don't feel I've got to prove at all. I don't really want to prove anything. I started as an amateur with no idea or no intention of becoming world champion. I was curious to find out